Call me Penguin. Failure is not an option. I am powerful. I am vicious. I am not a man to be trifled with.
These videos are not for children. If you are a children, then piss off.
Hey there, it's me, your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso, mediocre content creator, and giant Batman nerd. And today, I'm here to talk to you about Gotham. Again. And joining me is everyone's favorite animated talking dog, Channel Pup. Also, again.
Hello again, V-Generates, or for those who don't recognize me, hello again, V-Gins. Yep, that's right, I said what I said. I make content about different DC and Marvel properties. Yes, that's right, I'm a fan of both, we exist. And I got my start on this platform talking about Gotham, so it's always a pleasure to be revisiting this subject with my good pal Infuso.
Now, there are a lot of notable villains in Batman's rogues gallery. Too many, in fact. There are so many established names that even A-list foes have to take a backseat to other big bads. And I think that's the case with the Penguin. I mean, yeah, sure, he's well known. Even if you're not an avid Batman fan, like myself, I'm sure that you have a general knowledge and understanding on who this guy is. Or at the very least, you know his name. I'm pretty sure that most people can identify which Batman villain this is without having ever seen anything Batman. He's out there in pop culture. People know Oswald Cobblepot. Maybe not as Oswald Cobblepot, but they know the face nonetheless. And yet, this character is rarely ever explored. He's typically overlooked in favor of the Joker, the Riddler, or Two-Face. Which is a real shame, because the Penguin is actually a genuinely interesting character. The guy has a similar background and upbringing to Batman, though it's pretty clear that they went different routes later in life. In some ways, he's almost like Bruce Wayne's polar opposite. The guy's like the anti-Bruce. You could probably imagine that interesting stories can be crafted from that alone. Not to mention, the guy is a mob boss with a seemingly endless amount of connections. No matter what it is he needs, he's got a guy for that. He may not like to get his flippers dirty, but he has all the power to get things done and keep his conscience clean. So yeah, the Penguin most definitely poses a threat to anybody who crosses his path. And yet, this is a character that largely goes uncelebrated. When Gotham first came out, a lot of emphasis in the marketing was on the Penguin. It seemed like he was made to be the star of the show, the real threat to an already hopeless city. I remember being kind of excited to see what this new show Gotham would do with the character. And then when it came out, well, it certainly surprised me. But it didn't disappoint.
So, Penguin is easily the most prevalent villain in Gotham. I think it could be debated that he is the main villain of the show. And I remember when the first set photos and promo images were coming out of Robin Lord Taylor as the Penguin, and I was like, wait a minute, he's not a fat dwarf. What the hell? This doesn't make any sense. I didn't really have any prior affinity towards the Penguin, to be honest, before this came out, so I wasn't all that excited for Robin Lord Taylor's performance. Nothing personal, I just didn't care much for the Penguin. I think my favorite version before this came out was the version in Arkham City, because he's a straight-up fucking monster, effectively. But not in the literal sense like in Batman Returns. But anyway, I get away from myself. The story of Oswald Cobblepot in Gotham is the ultimate evil spin on rags to riches. From the Umbrella Boy and servant to Fish Mooney, through to being crowned King of Gotham. And what makes Penguin so interesting is his methodology. In the first season, we explore the Penguin's total lack of principle. This guy will act in his self-interest and only his self-interest. He doesn't care who he lies to, who he has to manipulate. Gotham is a dog-eat-dog world as far as he's concerned. And he goes out of his way to manipulate some of Gotham's most dangerous crime bosses, such as Sal Maroni and Don Falcone. His determination to rise to the very top of Gotham's food chain is so present in this arc that I just couldn't help but get invested. But Penguin isn't the Gary Stu of Gotham's underworld either. It's very much an uphill battle of survival for Oswald Cobblepot, because this guy gets himself almost killed every other day. I just want to say this right now. The scene where Penguin and Sal Maroni play the truth game, or the secrets game, is fucking iconic. That shit is incredible cinema, and I'm saying this about a medium-budget TV show. Hats off, stellar performances, great scene, great setup, holy shit, oh my god, amazing, I cream myself.
Gotham was a show set before Batman donned the cape and cowl. when villainy was just on the rise, in a place where crime was already prevalent. And being such, we typically see a lot of our heroes and villains in their origin stories. This is the year one for many a bad. Now, what was especially interesting here to me is that while characters such as the Riddler, Catwoman, Two-Face, and even the Joker had multiple backstories the writers could adapt, the Penguin, for the most part, did not. Very little was known about Oswald Cobblepot before he rose to power in the criminal underworld. His backstory before this show pretty much went, he was rich, and then he wasn't. And then he wasn't. And that's about it. There was so much about the character that was completely unwritten. So even comic book nerds or just fans of Batman in movies and TV had next to no connection with this character. I would imagine that most people who knew of the Penguin probably either knew of Burgess Meredith, who played him back in the 1960 show, and you know what, as fun as that show is to watch, I do put it on from time to time for laughs, they really weren't breaking any new grounds in terms of character development. It was a different time, and it was a different product. If that's what you're looking for, then that's probably not the show to watch. And I'd imagine that the rest of people probably knew of Danny DeVito's performance in Batman Returns, which, while iconic and something I hold close to my heart personally, that was most decidedly not Penguin. That was a completely different character, just with the name the Penguin. A lot of people who haven't dove in deep to the Batman product have lived their lives thinking that Penguin is some Penguin Man. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because the Penguin is not some Penguin Man. He's more like a man penguin, which is different. So while he was given a backstory and I guess an origin of sorts in Batman Returns, it was decidedly not the background or origin of the actual character. It's a completely different thing. To my knowledge, he didn't actually live in the sewers or use circus performers and live penguins as hired goons. That was typically not written into the Batman mythos. Now, in almost all Batman continuities, wherever it starts, the Penguin is already in a seat of power. We see a short, stocky, monocled man with a limp, watching as all those around him get his work done, while he's in the back giving out orders. But here we're shown that seat wasn't exactly being reserved for him. Throughout this series, we watch as the Penguin climbs his way through Gotham's criminal underworld, where he'd start off as an underling. The series gave us his rise to power, his constant heartbreaks and struggles, the thickening of his skin, and in doing that and showing the complexity as well as the tragic backstory of the character, it almost, in a weird way, makes you root for him. Despite all his villainy, on some level you kinda want to see the guy succeed. The show does a great job of showcasing his high intellect, incredible foresight, and strategic planning throughout its run. Gotham's Penguin may not hold a physical threat to many, but he should absolutely be seen as a threat to all. Gotham's Penguin was truly unpredictable, and you never know if he's actually being taken advantage of, or if everything is just going according to plan for him. You never know until the final reveal which plans Oswald truly has no control over. And despite the fact that the guy's called the Penguin, he's the definition of a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Moving over to Season 2, however, we explore whether or not the Penguin can be redeemed, as the King of Gotham is toppled from his post and dragged to Arkham Asylum, where Hugo Strange allegedly cures him and makes him into a much more gentle character. And after his treatment, Penguin sets out back into Gotham to find his family, where he meets Elijah Cobblepot and his step-siblings. And yeah, his new step-family after Elijah dies are absolute assholes, so ultimately they deserve what came to them, which was Penguin Unleashed once again, as he feeds his stepmother her own children. Man, oh man, that gives new meaning to, "What are you doing, stepson? Oh." Well, anyway.
The show did a good job of establishing Penguin's humanity, giving him a connection to various other characters. His mother, his father, Martine, Butch, the Riddler, and just when you believe that he's found a light in the darkness that is his very soul, it's yanked away from him, plunging him deeper into that darkness and bringing him closer to his inevitable infamy.
All things considered, you might be wondering whether or not the Penguin is actually capable of love. Which is where Season 3 kind of explores Penguin's kind of new romantic interest. He wants to diddle with the Riddle Man. He wants to ligma with Nigma. He wants to stick his beak in the Riddler's crack. And obviously the partnership turns sour. Because Riddler knows that ultimately Penguin will always act within his own self-interest. The Penguin is incapable of love. But it's interesting how the Penguin kind of tries to convince himself of his own humanity. He will lie to absolutely anyone and everyone, but that also includes himself when he takes on a young ward in Martine, trying to convince himself that he's doing a selfless act by looking after Martine, but he too knows deep down he's only acting within his self-interest, and by the time we reach Gotham Season 5, he's kind of accepted this, hoarding all of the food that he can, while the rest of Gotham suffers. Another highlight of the Penguin is his dynamic with Butch Gilzean, Penguin's right-hand man who falls in love with Tabitha Gallivan, the lady who killed Penguin's mother, and it seems like this was something that was maybe forgotten throughout Season 3 and 4. As the uneasy alliance between Penguin and Tabitha, it kind of just dissipates a little bit. Penguin seems pretty over it. Until the end of Season 4, where we think Penguin's done a really good thing for them in breaking Butch out of his Solomon Grundy state, but really he just wanted to take the opportunity to catch Tabitha off guard and fucking murder Butch. The great thing about Penguin is how he strikes when you sometimes least expect it. He can fool even the audience into thinking that he's being sincere 4 seasons in because you think his character has developed, but in a very satisfying way, he's still old Oswald Cobblepot. And it's incredible how the writers managed to achieve this without undercutting that development. This is who Penguin is. He's a shit. And Robin Lord Taylor plays this role flawlessly. I didn't know what to expect going in. At first, I kind of thought, well, he's not a dwarf, and he's not fat. But to be fair, they forged a brand new iconic look for this character. They haven't just made it realistic or any stuff like that. They've legitimately made a design with its own sense of iconography. His spiky, tufty black hair, which kind of resembles like penguin fur in a way. The penguin's hooked nose is still present. Because he was shot in the leg, he now walks like a penguin. And I'm just saying, I'm pretty envious of his wardrobe. Like, some of those suits are just... they're incredible. Like, I swear, you don't see fashion sense like this in other shows.
Of course, Cameron Monaghan's 2 Jokers stole the show, and became a focal point in the series, completely derailing original plans of having the Penguin as the series' big bad. And despite being a little bit overshadowed, I still think of the Penguin first when I think of Gotham. Probably before I think of any other character. I truly think that Gotham gave us the best Penguin. The show took elements of the classic Penguin character, and from that, they built their own. Not just character, but person. I think a lot of the time, it's understated just how good the show was. For the last couple years, studios have used the trope of turning their bad guys into misunderstood good guys, by giving them some dark, tragic backstory. Think you could date that all the way back to Rob Zombie, who wanted us all to cheer on Michael Myers. No, it's okay, he had a bad upbringing. Just let the guy take a stab at him. But I don't think that that's a problem here. I think Gotham did a really good job of finding a fair medium. The show doesn't justify or condone Oswald's actions, but they do make you understand what led up to them. Penguin is a villain through and through. The show at no point confuses him for a hero. But they do establish him as a 3-dimensional person. Yeah, he's a bad guy, but sometimes he struggles with being a bad guy. Sometimes he would like to be a good guy. There are times throughout the series where he does try to evolve, he does try to progress as a person. But for one reason or another, it just doesn't happen for him.
Now, comparing him to other live-action takes on the Penguin, obviously we're yet to see Colin Farrell's Penguin in Matt Reeves' The Batman in 2022, but judging by the trailers, he looks like he could be a contender for the most overall comic-accurate modern Penguin take. But for now, I would say that this one with Robin Lord Taylor takes the cake. It's a fantastic reinterpretation of the Penguin that is just as iconic as the classic and brings along some of his own iconography. This is now how I see the Penguin, and it's gonna be a little bit tricky for me moving into new takes on the Penguin. We've got this one that I would deem definitive. This is the best one yet. This is how I want to see the Penguin from now on. But, you know, obviously I still give Colin Farrell a chance. But this Weasley, limey, dirty, scummy, seedy bastard is just a character that it's impossible not to fall in love with. And the way he keeps the audience guessing as to whether or not he could ever be redeemed, as to whether or not he could ever love, and ultimately he's just this guy that acts with his own set of self-interests, is just, oh man, what a great character. A superb villain, and easily one of the best live-action comic book villain adaptations we've ever seen. They doubled down on everything there is to love about the Penguin and then some with this incarnation. It's kind of impossible to compare him to Burgess Meredith, because, I mean, Burgess Meredith is the definitive light-hearted and old-school Penguin, and then, of course, there's Danny DeVito, which is like, it's unlike any Penguin ever. It's a completely new character. It's very much a Tim Burtonized, original creation in that regard. Which is fine, but going from Danny DeVito to Robin Lord Taylor is like a breath of fresh air.
It's hard to say, as I personally really love Danny DeVito's interpretation of the character. But again, they're so wildly different that it's kind of hard to make a proper comparison. I think if we're talking about which brought the comic book character to life better and more accurately, I'd have to say Robin Lord Taylor. Despite not bearing a stunning similarity to his comic book counterpart, I really do see the Penguin when I look at him. I think he gave one of the best performances of his career, and in doing so gave us one of the best renditions of this character.
Honestly, they didn't even need to put him in his classic comic book costume in the season finale, because he earned absolutely all of his own iconography and aesthetic along the way.
Yeah, I gotta agree. By the time the series finale aired, fans had already gotten acquainted with and took a liking to this version of the character. I think giving him the monocle and top hat and putting Taylor in a fat suit in the show's last episode was a good intention mistake. At this point in time, he already proved that he was the Penguin. We didn't need to see the guy in what looked like Comic-Con cosplay. This just wasn't this show's Penguin. It kind of feels a little bit out of character and very, very unnecessary.
Thanks for sitting with me for a bit. I hope you'll be willing to check out my own content, maybe. But as it stands, thank you so much, Infuso, for having me on your show once again. I'm always game to talk about Gotham. What can I say? Take it easy, degenerates.
If you for some reason haven't already, rectify that problem now and head on over to Channel Pup's channel. Link in the description below. Head on over, press that big red subscribe button, and don't forget to let him know who sent ya. Anyway, with that being said, I was your least favorite YouTuber, Infuso. That was Channel Pup, and I thank you for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.
I am vengeance. I am the night, and that was Infuso. Just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.
So, if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too would like to become a V-generate, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, nerds!
And if you're not joining the fun, you're in for one bad day. And you know what they say about having one bad day?
Catch him next time. Same bat time. Same bat channel.